Now, I know what you're thinking. This is an indie game design channel. Why are you dressed so fancy? Why are you dressed so business today? The reason why is because this video is going to be all about the business website that we all know and love, LinkedIn.com, and some innovative new features that they've recently added in relation to game design. Like a lot of you, I use this website to look for new jobs, how I'm going to pay my rent next year and all of that kind of stuff. When you're looking for a role, even if it's not a suit kind of role, it's important to get in the right mindset, which is why I put a full suit on. I know there's some of you that will think maybe I don't have the trousers on, maybe I'm bare-legged, just in my boxer shorts down here. That I can neither confirm nor deny, because this is all you need to see. But recently, I found that LinkedIn have introduced this new feature, which is they kind of ask you for your opinion on stuff related to game design, and they say, hey, you're really qualified at this. Why don't you help us build the ultimate game design guide? It's a bit like in Fallout 3, where there's the Wasteland Survival Guide, and you help write it by going out and like collecting information about ghouls and death claws and stuff. LinkedIn is basically trying to do that, but with different professions. Here's an example of the sort of question that I get asked. You're developing a new game. How do you balance adding innovative features with hitting project deadlines? If you're a cynical person, you might think that what's happening here is LinkedIn is trying to use the unpaid labor of professionals in various fields to kind of train up a generative text AI that it owns, so that then they can say, well, this was actually trained by professional game designers without any intention of paying me. You know, I'm flattered that I've been asked. I'm flattered that LinkedIn have told me, oh, you're one of the special people who answer these questions about game design. But then on the other hand, they're probably going to financially profit from this in the long run. So instead of giving them the more straight down the line answer that I think I might give someone like a student if they'd, paid me to teach them, instead I'm going to give them an answer which I think embodies the kind of playful spirit that you should try and bring into game design with you. Every morning I wake up and open palm slam a VHS into the slot. It's Chronicles of Riddick, and right there I start doing the moves alongside with the main character Riddick, and so on and so forth. I think you'll be familiar with this work of literature. It goes back about 10 years now. I do every move, and I do every move hard, making whooshing sounds when I slam down some necro bastards, or even when I mess up technique. Not many can say they escaped the galaxy's most dangerous prison. In a couple of years' time, they will be flogging to investors to say, this was trained by professional game designers, and I want to make sure that my contribution to that effort is as useful as possible. And I think if we just scroll down a little bit, actually, it says, thanks for contributing. Do you want to add to some more articles? And I think it's only fair that we do this to as many articles as possible to make sure that the text corpus that LinkedIn is using to train this AI really has within it the playful spirit that I would expect professional game designers to embody. Ours is a trade which goes back to the great trickster gods of yore, to Loki from the Norse pantheon, Anansi from African folk tales, the tricksters of society whose role is like the court jester to kind of shake things up and kind of make sure that playfulness is available in abundance to other people. In West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground was where I spent most of my days. Now you might be thinking, okay, Joe, I can see that you're doing this with your real LinkedIn account. Isn't that a bit unprofessional? And to that, I would say, well, number one, that LinkedIn is a multi-million-dollar company and should not be asking people to work for them for free. And number two, the thing you really have to remember in this case is that I'm incredibly petty and quite immature. Thanks for contributing. Do you want to add to more articles? Let's have a look. Your team is pushing back on last-minute stakeholder requests. How can you overcome their resistance? These aren't game development specific things. These are just project management questions. You're receiving playtester feedback on storytelling integration. How can you enhance gameplay experience? It's like, they're two different questions. They don't link together. How can you enhance gameplay experience could be related to any part of the game, right? If you were choosing what font to put into a menu, that's part of the gameplay experience. If you're choosing sound effects, that's part of the gameplay experience. This is such a generically worded question. It's like, it starts off about something specific. A lot of the questions on here, when they talk about playtester feedback, they are worded in this way that assumes that the purpose of playtesting is to hear what people think about the game. Those of you who watch this channel regularly will know that I go on and on and on about playtesting being like a science experiment. It's not necessarily about getting spoken feedback where people tell you what they like and dislike. It's about watching them and seeing what they don't understand or what they find fun or not fun, and then like taking that and letting that lead you on your next decisions, because that's where the phrase "find the fun" comes from. It's like you get people to play the game, and the game has like A, B, C, D in it, features, right? And then they gravitate towards C and D. So on your next iteration with the game, you make C and D more prominent, right? And you kind of make them a larger portion of what the game is about, because that seems to be what resonates with people. Or you look at it and you say, well, A and B is still important, but they weren't going towards that. What can we do to make them larger, make them more prominent, make them more important, or to kind of integrate them or piggyback them onto features C and D, like so that they kind of ride the success of those features, and all of these important features can stay in, but those are kind of attached to the bit that players seem to be drawn to. Playtesting is about watching people, and the verbal feedback you get can be helpful, but it can also be totally misleading, because it could just be that you're playtesting with someone who is not your core audience, who doesn't like this game. You're playtesting with someone who knows that something is wrong, but doesn't actually know what it is, so they are giving you a particular type of response because they think this is an exercise in like how clever they are. Sometimes you don't necessarily want a well thought out response from a playtester. You want a gut reaction. You want, what happens when someone is playing this game and they're not really paying attention, because that will be a large chunk of your user base. Again, this is a weirdly worded question, because it's saying playtester feedback and then it's talking about storytelling integration, which is such a clumsy set of words. And like, what are we testing when we ask people to play through the story? Are we doing like sensitivity testing to see if they found something upsetting or offensive or something like that? It looks like a reasonable question, and then as soon as you start to think about it, you remember what AI images used to be like a year or two ago, where they kind of felt like you were seeing someone's dream, and it's like it's trying to be a real thing and it's melting and falling apart. These are the linguistic and conceptual equivalent of that. You look at them, they look real, and then when you stare at it, you'll realize you're in this kind of weird psychedelic surreal space where words don't really mean anything, and they're just like stringy pizza cheese that is pulling in different directions. You're facing resistance from a team member. How can you guide them towards embracing new work processes? This is quite a good question, because I've definitely been in this scenario before. I've definitely had conflicts at work. But this is another one of the questions where it's like the question is fundamentally flawed, right? Because what if I'm facing resistance from a team member because I'm the one in the wrong? Why should there be a guide question here that is like, how do I make the other person do what I want? That is not a productive or healthy way to think about disputes at work. I know you're asking me to stay. Say please don't go away, because you're giving me the blues. If I was a cynical person, I would think that a bunch of the questions that are being posed here have also been generated by an LLM. For this river. It's worded in a soft, gentle way, but it's written from the assumption that I'm not wrong in the first place, which is a bad, unhealthy way to think about workplace conflicts. It becomes an ocean. There we go, submitted. Another one down. Let's keep going. Let's keep on trucking. Maybe some of these questions themselves have actually been generated by an LLM, and that's why they sort of make sense grammatically, but then when you think about them in context and think about them in the context of making a game or even in business generally, they very quickly fall apart, because they're actually, things baked into the question that are inherently wrong. I can almost guarantee we're going to see more of this as we work through more of this wonderful project that I'm undertaking today. You're developing a game with limited resources. How do you prioritize feature requests? This is one that could be a really good place for an interjection by one of my favorite group of philosophers, the Wu-Tang Clan. The problem with using this one is there's quite a lot of racially specific slang that I'm not going to kind of repeat in my own hand, but I think we can just use the chorus. Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar, dollar bill, You're facing harsh criticism on your game project. How do you navigate feedback from industry peers? There's actually some good responses on here. Absorb the message, seek clarification, implement strategically. You know, if someone says, hey, I've got a problem with your game because a lot of the sort of representations in your game are inherently racist, then what you should do is implement strategically, and that will solve the problem and make it go away. This one is actually quite a serious topic, and I don't have much to say on it that is kind of insightful or clever. What I will say is, when people say criticism, it's like, what kind of criticism, right? Your game isn't fun is a very different kind of criticism from your game is doing something socially harmful. And you can't approach those different kinds of criticism in the same way. So once again, I'm going to say, this is a stupid question, probably written by a robot. What it's getting as a response is going to be probably too good for it, I would say. But we're going to go with the succulent Chinese meal rant.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest. What is the charge? Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal?
I'm aware that that contains multiple references to male genitalia, so
My limp penis?
this might be something that gets me banned from LinkedIn, but like I said before, you know, I'm giving them the level of respect that they've given me by expecting me to do this labor for them for free and kind of trying to hype it up as being some kind of community activity when really it is a profit generation, or at least a value generation exercise for them. Working with partners who disagree on diversity in game content. You know what it means. You know what these 9 contributors are going to have thought it means. When we say diversity, we mean representational diversity, right? We mean, does this game have, you know, an equal and positive representation of people from different demographic backgrounds, people with different kind of abilities, people with different religious or sexual backgrounds and stuff like that. And that's often what we mean when we talk about diversity, particularly in LinkedIn land. But diversity in game content doesn't mean that. Diversity in game content means having game content which is diverse, having game content which contains lots of different things. So again, it's just a badly worded question, and the reason why is because the question has been written by the LLM. Best video game speeches. Here's a good one. The Sovereign from Mass Effect. Rudimentary creatures of blood and flesh. You touch my mind, fumbling in ignorance, incapable of understanding. We impose order on the chaos of organic life.
You exist because we allow it, and you will end because we demand it.
This is an utterly dystopian situation. You've got like a robot built by a corporation spitting out questions at professional people who are just trying to make a living, and it doesn't know if the questions make sense. It just kind of does its best. And then those people are told, you can contribute to this article. You've got expertise that we value. And they're kind of flattered by that because it kind of flatters their ego that they jump in. They're like, yeah, I'll help train the LLM. I'm the chosen one. Yeah, good times. You know, having an LLM generate questions that may or may not make sense. Professional people in a field are giving up their time and effort and expertise to answer these questions. You're the chosen one. Only you can help answer this question. Contribute your insights. As one of the chosen few who is asked to do this, you look at the question, you think, well, that question doesn't really make sense. And that's why a lot of the contributions on these lists, and they'll say, well, it depends. You know, or you can't catch all the bugs because they've been asked a stupid question in the first place. And you've basically got, you know, grown adults with decades of experience, thousands of decades of experience combined when you put them together, answering questions that are less intelligent than the questions they might get asked by a child. If you are watching this and you've answered one of these questions before, because like me, you're a business big shot who's on LinkedIn all day, there are lots of other ways of being asked interesting questions and getting a chance to give your answer. You know, go into a school, go and talk to some kids about game development. Just go on Reddit like a normal person and argue with Keith Begun about something. I don't know. Don't do this. You're above this. You're better than this. They're not going to pay you. They're not going to pay you. And when the headhunters are on LinkedIn looking around for a new game designer or a project manager, they're not going to pick the person who wrote the most contributions. Actually, they might do, because it kind of shows that you're quite into doing useless tasks for no money. And if they're in a kind of position of trying to employ someone, they might think that's good. That's going to give them good value. You know, you like answering pointless questions, and you like putting in effort to something you're not being paid for. But you also, you know, can't tell when a question is nonsense. So, sort of swings and roundabouts, isn't it?